This is the Citroen C5 Aircross. Now, likely you would have seen a few of these driving around as it was first launched back in 2018. Less likely, you would have seen this model because it was only very recently that Citroen launched the plug-in hybrid version. And yeah, you guessed it, this is it. If you're after a plug-in hybrid SUV, your options are actually really starting to mount up. I mean, this car counts the DS7 Crossback E-Tense, the Peugeot 3008 hybrid, the Vauxhall Grandland X hybrid as close relatives, and then you've got the plug-in versions of the Kia Niro, the Ford Kuga and the Mini Countryman, just to name a few. So, why should you buy a C5 over all of that lot? Well, I'll do you a deal. If you do the whole like and subscribe thing on the Carbuyer YouTube channel, I will tell you all about it. Citroen is doing a pretty good job of making its cars stand out at the moment, and the C5 Aircross is no exception. Our car's volcano red paint and two-tone alloy wheels certainly help at the front, and you can also go for the optional contrasting gloss black roof if you fancy it. The design is pretty eye-catching anyway, especially at the front where the nose is dominated by a split grille with daytime running lights that sit above chunky headlights. Citroen's distinctive air bumps, first seen on the C4 Cactus, have been shrunk and added lower down to the sides of the car near the sills. They're also repeated on the front bumper and are available in contrasting silver, white or red finishes, depending on the main colour of the car, of course. Obviously, Citroen won't allow you to pick a combo that clashes. Now, Citroen doesn't really have a reputation for making family cars that are really great to drive like Ford or BMW, which is why it makes sense for the brand to make an SUV that focuses on unique design and comfort. To try and make the C5 a class leader in the comfort department, Citroen has developed advanced comfort seats and its progressive hydraulic cushions suspension system. The suspension was introduced with much fanfare but isn't actually as cushiony as you might expect, but I'll say more on that later. Citroen's design team has also tried to make the interior unlike anything you'll see in one of the car's many rivals. I'd say the designers have been pretty successful here actually, because the overall look and the shapes are very unusual and very distinctive. The seats are squidgy and they look nice as well. There's some nice soft touch on the dash, got some chrome bits on the vents and on the door handles, leather trim on the seats. Admittedly, there is a little bit of scratchy plastic, but it's only on the door panels, so nothing too shocking. Behind the steering wheel, you've got a 12.3-inch customisable display that comes as standard in every C5. Then you've got the 8-inch infotainment system as well, which has Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. You've got 2 USB sockets, Bluetooth, voice recognition. Now, while all of this might look lovely, it's not the best infotainment system out there. I mean, it's better than the other Citroens, it's still a little bit laggy. Now, a lot of the controls are actually done using this touch-sensitive strip along the bottom here, which while you're driving is actually quite difficult to use. Citroen recently overhauled its trim structures, and while our car is technically now the obsolete Flare model, the changes don't run much deeper than some new names. Flare has become Shine, but the equipment is basically the same. The range now consists of 3 core trims called Sense, Shine and Shine Plus, and there's also the C-Series trim that's based on the mid-range Shine model. It offers some extra equipment for less money, but it's only available with the petrol engine and the manual gearbox, and you don't get much choice on paint colours. Now, it's not just the front that's unusual, because here in the back they've done something quite strange as well. We've got 3 seats that are the same size here in the back, rather than one seat here, bit in the middle, which on paper would make sense, but it doesn't actually give any extra shoulder room. Plus, well, there's no transmission tunnel here, so I suppose you've got a little bit of extra room for your feet. The most surprising thing, considering the size of this car, is the lack of leg room in the back here. Now, this back bench does slide backwards and forwards, which is handy considering you've got a plug-in hybrid boot, so you need a little bit more boot space. But when you've got it slid all the way forward, not a lot of leg room. You want it to move back that little bit further so that you can stretch your legs out a bit. I mean, we've got 2 ISOFIX points here, and we put a child seat in here earlier and it was basically leaning up against the front seat. So yes, a bit further back for the bench would be nice. Boot space in the regular C5 Aircross measures a generous 580 litres, which is probably one explanation for why legroom is at something of a premium for people sitting in the back. Sliding the rear seats forwards increases this to 780 litres, and folding them down gives you 1,630 litres. Because of the plug-in hybrid powertrain's extra bulk, the boot of the plug-in C5 shrinks to 460 litres, but that's still comfortably more than you would get in a PHEV version of the Peugeot 3008, Kia Niro or the Mini Countryman. Sliding the seats forward in this model frees up 600 litres, while folding them down creates 1,510 litres of space. The C5 engine range is very simple: one petrol, one diesel, plug-in hybrid. Now, the plug-in hybrid starting price is around £4,000 more than the range-topping diesel, but it's a lot more powerful than both of the conventional engines, plus returns much better economy figures as long as you plug it in, people. The hybrid system consists of 1.6 litre petrol engine and 80 kilowatt electric motor, and combined they make 222 brake horsepower, which feels very quick. I mean, 0 to 62 in 8.7 seconds, but it feels a lot quicker than that. I think because of the power from the electric motor. When you're on the motorways, it feels nice and quiet, and even when you're in and around town and it's cut in between the electric motor and the petrol engine, you don't really hear much. And the 1.2 litre petrol and the 1.5 litre diesel are just as smooth and quiet, but I mean, I think you would just appreciate the power of the hybrid just that little bit more if you can stretch to it. When considering whether or not you can afford it, it's worth bearing in mind that the PHEV model has the potential to be much cheaper to run. This car officially claims 157 to 222 miles per gallon, depending on conditions and the exact spec, along with CO2 emissions of 32 grams per kilometre, which put it into the 11% benefit in kind bracket for company car drivers. For comparison, the C5 Aircross, with the 128 brake horsepower diesel engine, returns 57.7 miles per gallon with CO2 emissions of 130 grams per kilometre, while the 128 brake horsepower petrol is good for 41.1 miles per gallon and 145 grams per kilometre. These figures get slightly worse with bigger wheels and an automatic gearbox. You may recall I mentioned ride quality earlier, and that's because much was made by Citroen about the suspension system back when it was first released, and it was touted as, roughly, I'm paraphrasing a little bit here, but the most comfortable thing in the world ever. And well, basically it's not. It's a fine ride, it's comfortable enough, as long as you're going on smooth roads, but as soon as you go into town, if you hit a pothole, you feel that jolt right from the floor all the way up into the cabin. The car's handling isn't really anything to get excited about either. I mean, the steering feels a bit vague. It leans on bends, which I suppose is not out of the ordinary for a car in its class, but it kind of adds to the list of downers when the car already hasn't met the comfort expectations, you know? I mean, these seats are comfortable enough, but round the sides you don't feel like you've got that much support, so sometimes you feel like you're going to slide off as you drive around corners. It's probably not helped by my shiny leggings. What we've learnt today is don't have a Citroen and wear shiny leggings. While I'm having a whinge, gear stick is on the wrong side of the centre console for a right-hand drive. I find that really annoying. Okay, I've got that off my chest now, that's fine. So while I calm down, let's have some deal makers and deal breakers. Citroen has succeeded in giving the C5 Aircross its own distinctive look and personality, both inside and out. The petrol and diesel engines on offer return impressive economy, and the plug-in hybrid model pushes that onto another level. The C5 Aircross is one of the biggest boots in its class, and even the smaller boot in the PHEV model is bigger than those of plug-in rivals. The big boot is great, but it seems to have come at a cost of legroom for those sitting in the rear seats. We don't necessarily expect a family SUV to be a great drive, but the C5 is neither fun nor as comfortable as we hoped it would be. So there you have it, the C5 Aircross. Now, while the body style remains very popular, this is still a very quirky niche choice, probably because it's generally competent across the board rather than standing out or excelling in one particular area. Now, while the introduction of a plug-in hybrid model has broadened the appeal of the C5, There are alternatives that you can consider, like the Peugeot 3008, that's just as stylish and actually better to drive. And while this has more style and personality than the Kia Niro or the Ford Kuga, this is actually more expensive. What we have here then is an economical, reasonably comfortable family SUV with a pretty big boot that's worth considering if you like the way it looks. But I think the C5 hasn't quite fulfilled its potential. If you found this video useful, then why not watch our Ford Kuga review or our SUV playlist. Thanks for watching.